这个疫情的关系，我们的很多孩子都在家里上学，也不能到学校去，所以呢也没有很多的和朋友一起玩的机会，也没有很多的社交生活。那么这样的情况呢，对孩子的心理影响呢，有时候会很大他有时候会变得觉得孤独，有时候会这个沮丧或者烦躁，各种各样的情况。所以我们中文学校呢举办了这一次讲座，为了我们家长呢，让他们知道在这个期间家长能做一些什么，然后孩子呢应该怎么样调节一下。So let's welcome Dr. Adrian Rico Elhai. Adrian is the director of Collins Center of ProMedica, and her expertise is the child trauma. She has many years of experience in this field, and also she is a longtime family friend. So let's welcome her, and thank you very much, Adrian.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction, and thank you for taking some time out of this Wednesday evening to join us tonight. I hope I can bring some information to you that will be helpful in this upcoming school year, because I know this is a very different school year from any school years we've had before. I know that as of now, all of the children in this local area have now started school. This week, I believe, is the last week or the final week where all kids have now joined school. I think TPS was the last school to start. So now all kids are back in school, and we want it to be a really successful school year. Here we go. So, but we know obviously that this pandemic, COVID-19, has been really stressful. I think it's probably safe to say that it's something that most of us, if not all of us, haven't experienced before. It's been stressful in a lot of different ways. When it first started back at the end of last school year in March and April, I think that a lot of us were in a different kind of stress, not having experienced it before, hearing a lot of different kind of information. We were very hyper vigilant. But now it's just kind of fatigue, right? Like we've been doing this for a very long time. We want to really get back to normal, but what is normal? And I think the other reason why it's been really stressful is we've been missing a lot of those milestones and activities that we're used, we want to be able to do. So we look at our kids specifically, at the end of last year, there were all these activities, graduations, parties, birthdays, things that kids missed out on that are really hard. And then over the summer, camps that our kids look forward to, vacations. And some of us have probably been really good about being creative around those things, and other of us have maybe been more shut-ins and been really careful, maybe because we have illnesses in the family, or we're trying to be a lot more protective of our family because we've had to be. So this is obviously really stressful, and I know I don't really have to go on about that. So for some of our kids, it's been okay, and they probably are doing really well. And maybe you saw that maybe some of your children, if they are more on the anxious side, or maybe school was a little harder for them, maybe they liked actually being at home. It felt safer to them. They loved, being with you as their family. And it didn't bother them so much to be inside and not around so many kids, or maybe even the pressures of having so many activities, because I know in our culture, we like to have our kids really busy, and it felt really good to them to slow down a little bit. So for some of those kids, maybe this has been kind of a positive, and you haven't seen, so many problems. They haven't seen so stressed. They've adapted pretty well. And, maybe getting back into school is going to seem more stressful because it's going to be a change for them. But for some kids, it's been, much more stressful. And, every kid's different. And of course, you know your children better than anyone. So maybe you've seen some signs of stress for them. Stress sometimes looks the same in kids as it does in adults, but there are some differences. So maybe you've seen changes in sleeping or eating. Maybe it's harder for them to fall asleep, or they wake up at night, or maybe they sleep more. Maybe they're not interested in activities as much. Maybe they're crabbier, or they don't listen to you and they're talking back more than they normally do. Maybe they're having trouble concentrating. Maybe they're having, they're regressing to behaviors they used to do, and now, they've attained those milestones and now they're going back to them, like bedwetting or things like that, fear of the dark. So when you see these kinds of signs of stress, it could be related to the pandemic. It could be related to school. They could be picking up on fears that they're seeing in the media or fears in the family. So these are all really important things to kind of take note of and, be able to help them with coping. And we'll talk a little bit more about that along the way. So I know we all know you wouldn't even be on this if you didn't think school was important. Almost every parent thinks school is important, and it's important for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we want our kids to be, learn what they need to learn to be successful, get all that academic knowledge. A lot of parents want their kids to go on to college, and they need all that. We want them to do well that way, so they learn those things so they can go on to college or whatever they end up doing later on in life. But school also provides a lot of structure. And when they're in school, that structure is easier to provide because it's embedded in school. Peers are very, very important for children, not only for that friendship, which is important, but they're also learning how to deal with other people in a socially appropriate way. And that's one of the best places they can have that interaction is in school. But one final other thing about school, which is important, is finding what they're really good at. Some kids excel actually at academics, but other kids, they also excel at other things, music, science clubs, chess, whatever it is. And the older kids get, the more opportunities they have to do that at school. And so what's different this year too, is that a lot of those things, schools are trying to figure out how can they provide those things for children and students, because it's hard to do that this year. So obviously school's looking different this year, and I'm wondering what it looks like for all of your children. But we know about remote learning, and some school districts are going completely remote, and so they're getting that education all from home and through a computer. And for some kids, they prefer this because they maybe are anxious about going back to school. They're feeling kind of stressed out. They're worried about their health or your family's health. And so this might seem like a good idea for them, but this also could be problematic for children who need more structure, who get easily distracted, who need more one-to-one or hands-on learning experiences. So it's not necessarily ideal. And then you have in-person learning, which of course is what we have normally in school, but this is better, right, for most kids. I mean, I would say for all kids, because you have that face-to-face experience with a teacher. You're getting that really rich instruction from the teacher. You're having that peer interaction. You're having that actual structure to the day. But of course, the problem with in-person learning right now is if you're having all the kids in all the time, then there's that anxiety around possibly getting COVID. And, so those more anxious kids can be concerned about that. And then, of course, we have the hybrid model. And I don't know if everyone has access to their chat box, but I'm just curious about where, just so that I know for the rest of the presentation, where people are like kind of not what school district you're in particularly, but if your children are learning through remote, if they're learning through all in person, or if there's some sort of hybrid model, if you're willing to do that. I can just keep going if you're not, but it's just helpful for me to like do the presentation.
Well, my kids, first quarter will be remote learning, and then probably will go to the hybrid.
Okay.
Anyone else?
My older kid, my daughter is doing hybrid, and my son, who's you know, 8th grader, he's doing all in-person learning.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a mixture of remote, in-person, hybrid. I'll just give one more second for anyone else who wants to share. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. So really what I want to talk about then is how do we help our kids be successful in school? And I mean like that academically, and then not only that, but how do we help them grow through this and even be stronger, be resilient, you know, cope through this, because this is a different, you know, a totally different situation. Because at the end of the day, you know, the way I feel about it, because I have 2 children myself, they're in junior high and high school, and, you know, we're growing, you know, adults, we're growing children to be adults. We want them to be successful in life, very healthy, adaptable, you know, human beings. And of course I want both my children to get good grades, but I also want them to be able to handle the curveballs that are thrown at them, and, you know, and come out of it the other side just as strong, if not stronger. So first, let's talk about, you know, helping kids be successful at school, be able to handle those academic challenges, which partly means that we as parents need to be able to help them through that. We need to keep our own sanity, because this is a really tough time for us too. We're trying to cope with all of our own stuff, and then help them be able to cope whether they're in person, whether they're remote, or whether they're a hybrid of the two. And so I'm going to give a number of suggestions. I know that each family is individual. You all have your own family unique culture, the way that you do things. Some of these things you might already be doing and are excellent at. Other things, maybe you're like, there's no way, that's not going to work for my family. But my hope is that there are some things here you're like, you know what, I really want to try that out, and I think that that might work for me. So one of the first things is we know that routines are really important. When we don't have control over things, we don't really feel safe. And the pandemic is already not making us feel very safe about a lot of things. And for kids, you know, even when sometimes, you know, kids are like, you know, I just want to do what I want when I want it, because we probably all have heard that one time or another from at least one of our children. They do really like predictability. They like to know what's going to happen when, and some kids have to have that. They just really, really need to have that predictability. So maybe you're already a family that is very routinized. You already really have a strong routine. That's amazing, excellent, you know, keep doing that. But if you're a family that's a little looser, maybe you could just choose one of these things that I have listed up here and just try to build some sort of routine in to help so that they know what comes next. This is especially helpful for kids with attention problems or already are a little on the anxious side. This really, really can help. So whether it's having a regular bedtime and waking time, and when I say bedtime, I just don't mean let's go to bed at 9 o'clock and make sure you get enough sleep, but building in the hour ahead or the hour and a half ahead, letting them know what they're going to do up through that to help them so that they're sleepy enough to go to bed, so they don't bring all your worries to you right at bedtime. And so then here you are, it's 9:30 at night and they're still telling you all the things they're worried about. And of course, posting, you know, like making sure they know when their classes are, when they're going to be you know, at school, not at school, so they know what to expect. And the last thing on there is like building in fun activities. What can they look forward to? And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit, but some kids love school, and some of you might have kids that are like, ugh, and I have one of each actually. And so I really have to focus on, okay, so how are we going to get through this day? What can you look forward to? What at school can you look forward to? What can you look forward to after school? So for those of you who have kids that are working from home, this is really, really important. How can you create that working space, a corner of the room, you know, maybe part of your office, a corner of their bedroom, a space in the kitchen, wherever it is. It doesn't have to be a particular area in your home, but that is going to be their space that they can work. I don't think you have to have it just needs to be, especially if they're remotely, it has to be a dedicated space. It does not have to be a big space, but it needs to feel good to them, comfortable to them, that they feel like they can really work, and it has the supplies they need so they're not running around trying to grab them. And especially if they're a child, you know, a child or a teenager, I'm just keep saying child, but I mean any age, who is, you know, a little reluctant to be working, help them make it their space. So maybe they pick the organizer they're using to organize all their school supplies, or they have a special poster they can put up that either they create or they buy that makes it feel like it's their special space, that makes them a little more excited to be sitting there. I don't know how many of you are work remotely and have to sit in front of a computer all day, but I do, and I've had plenty of like, you know, web meetings. I'm on Zoom a lot actually, and I'm okay with that. I'm an adult, but it does get tiring. So anything to kind of perk it up a little bit for them and make them feel like, okay, I can do this. Now, staying connected to school is probably going to be harder than ever. As far as I can tell, because I work with kids, you know, I run a child clinic. I try to keep up on what most of schools are doing. And it seems like most schools are trying to keep parents out of the schools. I don't know if you've already like stayed, you know, figured that out. But I do think they're trying to help you be connected to the school. But the other thing I figured out is that the information that's coming at us as parents, there's so much of it, so many emails, so many things that we have to understand. And a lot of times the schools are only like one step ahead of us, and like what they only understand a little bit more than they're telling us. So what I'd suggest is maybe pairing up with one of your fellow parents so that you try to understand these things together, and say, so if there's a new app, and I don't know all the remote learning platforms that the other schools are using necessarily, my kids are in Sylvania, but trying to understand those things together, make sure you're not missing emails, and so checking in with each other. If you need additional resources, make sure you reach out to the counselor, to the teachers. If your child's on an IEP or individualized education plan, or a 504 plan, you know, reach out, make sure they're still doing those things. You know, make yourself known, obviously as a parent, to make sure that your child's getting what they need, even if it's not a regular school year. And I'm just going to pause right now to say, if anyone has questions, you know, like interrupt me and ask, or put it in the chat box. I have my chat box up so I can see. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking. So, all right. So we need to, I know all the kids are in school now. So maybe you've already done this, but preparing kids for what to expect this year, or even what kind of questions they may still have. I know for my children, I personally still don't always know what to expect from a school year because it keeps changing. And I think it's important to be talking to our children about you know, what the school year's looking like, in a developmentally appropriate way, why it looks like what it looks like, you know, why are we not in school full time? Why are we wearing masks? You know, why are we remote versus in person, or why are we in person? Well, my friend across town is remote. Focusing on what is in their control, what's in adults' control, so that we're not scaring them with information they don't need to know about. But it's important, because otherwise, if we don't tell them information, they're just going to fill it in, and it may not be the kind of information. It may be like some from social media they may fill in, and it may be wrong information, maybe things they hear from their friends. And again, it may be scarier information, or it may be incorrect information. So the things that you can talk to them about, especially when we have very young children, is just keeping it really simple. Telling them, you know what, so let's say if they're going to school, right now you're going to school, but you have to wear masks. And it's really important that you wash your hands and that you don't trade masks with your friends. Everything that the teachers are doing is to keep you safe. So it's really important that you keep listening to the teachers and the staff at school. So you're, you know, really talking to them about things that's important for them to do, and that how the adults are keeping them safe. But as kids get older, of course, you know, it's important to give them more facts about what things are happening, and help them say, what are you hearing about why you're, you know, we're going remote, or what's being done to prevent infection. And sometimes they may even know more than you do about what's going on in the school, and ask them questions. With teenagers, you know, we know that teenagers can have strong opinions about things, of course. And maybe, let's say, they really want to go see their friends, or they, you know, they have certain decisions they want to make. Then engage them in that decision making. Of course, you have the final say as the parent. So as long as it fits with your family values, engage them in that process. But using those facts and making sure that you're talking to them about what's happening. So again, when we're getting them ready for what's happening with schools, some of your kids may still be remote, but they're getting ready to go. Let's say I heard you say that maybe in the second quarter they'll be in person. So get them ready for that. Get them ready, putting on masks. This is mostly for younger kids, or washing hands, or social distancing. And another thing is, we know peer pressure exists. So what if, you know, get them ready for, like, if someone says, you know, your zebra mask is really cool. Can I have your zebra mask and I'll give you my monkey mask, or whatever it is. And so talk to them about how to say, no, you know, my mom says I have to wear, you know, keep my mask on, and you keep your mask on. Or if they say, you know, they want to give hugs, what do you want them to say? Talk them through those situations, because those situations probably will come up, and you need to, and I'm not telling you what you need to tell them to say, but you need to talk them through, you know, how you would like them to handle those situations. So some kids are, you know, going to be anxious. We have found there is, you know, a lot of research that shows anxiety has increased a lot over the past few years, and definitely anxiety has increased since COVID has started. There's something we say in psychology, name it to tame it. And that simply just means that if you address something and you name what the anxiety is or the fear is, that helps decrease that anxiety. So this works for very young children or school-age children to help them identify what is it that they're worried about. So if you notice that your child is, let's say, worried about catching COVID, worried about you getting sick, because a lot of young children are very worried about their family members getting sick, Or maybe it's nothing to do with COVID. It's worried about school. You know, I'm worried that I'm not going to do well on my test. I'm worried about that my friend is saying something bad about me. So whatever it is, whatever the anxiety is, help them name what that is. And just by naming it, and then that's going to help them learn to have better emotional resilience, because they're having a language for their, a language to speak about what their emotions are. And just by listening to them, that actually helps them have more emotional and psychological resilience. You provide emotional support by listening to them. And then if needed, you can help provide them with coping strategies and problem solving. Again, focusing on what can be controlled, what can they control. So if we go back to that COVID example and they say, you know, I'm really worried that I'm going to catch COVID or you're going to get sick. You can't say, well, it's going to be okay. No one's going to get sick. No one's going to get COVID. You can't tell them that because you don't know if that's going to be true or not. But what you can say is, are you, you know, you're wearing your mask, you're using, you know, you're washing your hands, mom's washing your hands, dad's washing his hands, dad and mom are wearing their mask. You know, that's what we need to do to keep ourselves safe and healthy. And so you're focusing on those things that can be controlled and helping them to decrease their anxiety. So these are the things that help kids who have a lot of anxiety to learn to problem solve and help work through some of those fears. When we talk about coping skills, because coping skills are another thing that I think a lot of kids need to learn how to do. And I think, and we'll talk a little bit more later about, in general, having good self-care and being resilient. But when we talk about those immediate coping skills, kids need to learn how to regulate themselves. That's part of becoming an adult. They say one of the biggest things that, not they say, but research shows that one of the most important skills that children need to learn how to do is emotional regulation. And so when a child is anxious or frustrated or angry or any non-positive emotion, then they need to be able to have a immediate coping response. What can they do to decrease decrease that negative emotion and get them back on a stable kind of ground? And then, so let's say, for instance, they're in school and they're actually remote learning, and they're getting really frustrated because they can't log on, or this math is really, really hard, but they're one of 30 kids and the teacher can't get to them. And so they're getting frustrated. Maybe they're, starting to get elevated, their heart's racing. I know, whatever your child in particular does. I've seen plenty of children who then will be like, I can't do this, I'm stupid. So whatever your child maybe does. So that's when they would need to be able to have a good coping response. So these are just some in particular coping skills, but these are not the end all be all. Every child needs to have a few, and I suggest that they have coping responses that they can do in the moment, such as breathing, taking a drink of water, maybe stretching, having a mantra like, I can do this will pass, squeezing a stuffed animal if they're young, things like that. And then maybe have a few others that they might take a little bit longer, like doing some push-ups, running, jogging, listening to music. And so the key about coping skills is that, first of all, you have to have a plan for it. Maybe write them down. They have to be somewhere where they can see them, and then they have to practice. And they can't practice only when they're upset. They have to practice when they're not upset. Because, think about like things that maybe you you want to do, if you're already elevated and upset, then you're not going to want to do them. It's the same things with kids. So they have to maybe practice every day, like these things, so they get used to doing them, like taking those breaths or stretching or whatever. And then they need a reminder to do them when they're frustrated. And then they keep practicing. And until finally it's like brushing your teeth, right? And then you automatically do it. So this is a really important skill that like all individuals need to learn to do, and they need to learn to do it from a very young age. So I mentioned this earlier, I briefly touched on this, but while it's important to acknowledge anxiety and frustrations and to not minimize those things, it's also important to help our kids focus on something they're looking forward to. And so help them find those things during the day. So there's got to be something during the school day that they really, really enjoy. I mean, some kids I know love school. But on those days that maybe are tough, okay, so what's that thing that you really are looking forward to? But for those kids that are maybe struggling because it's a difficult year, help them focus on those things. Is it that one teacher that they really, really like? Okay, focus on that. Well, you get to see Mrs. Kolb today, you know, that's going to be really awesome that you get to see her today, or whatever it is. Help them focus on those things so they can always see a positive and they're not focusing on the negative. Those are the people that, you know, are really successful when they can see positive things, even when the negative is going on around them. Finally, I know this is a social media kind of world, and I'm not going to tell you to not let your kids be on social media, but if there's a way to just know what they're watching on social media, especially our tweens and teens, might be seeing things about the pandemic or school or other things that might influence them and have information that you're not aware of that might cause them more anxiety. So maybe just watch some of the things that they're watching, ask them about what they're seeing, so that you're more aware of it. And then you can let them know your opinion about it, because your opinion really matters and they listen to you way more than sometimes we are aware of. It like seeps in there, and then they sometimes in most surprising ways, your opinion comes out. So just monitoring those things and having discussions about those things is really important. And the very final thing is you know, at least I know for a lot of the people that I know, this has been a really, really stressful time. I'm sure it's been stressful for all of you in some ways or other ways. And so the more you can show that this year is going to be a successful year, the school year is going to be successful, and you have confidence in your child that they can do this, and you can model that calm, confident behavior, then this is going to help your child feel that they can do it, or your children feel they can do it. And then also the other thing, and I didn't write this on the slide, but the more you can also practice some self-care and like take some time for yourself, then that's also going to be helpful to you. So have that cup of tea, sit down, you know, just take some time. I think that's going to help you then feel more re-energized to support your child. So the final few slides are just focused on building resilience in our children. So resilience really is having that, being able to accept situations or during this challenging time, and being able to like bounce back and grow even stronger. And so first, really, I think one of the biggest things is like, how do we look at this, what's going on in this pandemic and school year being different? Are we fighting against it? I think what we need to do first is talk to our kids about what is really making us sad about this school year. What is making us frustrated and angry? Like, with our child, and then being able to grieve that part of it, but then also saying, is there anything that can be positive? Like you notice I keep talking about that piece. Has there been anything about about the pandemic that's actually been a good thing that we can focus on too? So for instance, the fact that our lives have slowed down, maybe we've had a lot more family time together than we used to because we're not so busy. And that maybe has been a positive thing for us. And just flipping that script a little bit and telling our, helping our children to do that as well. So that is a sign of resilience that can help grow the resilience in our with our kids. And then building on top of that is maybe like focusing on ways you can have family fun time, and making it even a stronger way to accept this. Like this is just how reality is right now, and we're going to even make it even stronger. And along those same lines, helping them learn to be flexible. So maybe they are really wanting things to be a certain way. Maybe they usually are on the soccer team and they can't be on the soccer team, or they're on Science Olympiad in high school, and Science Olympiad team isn't going to meet the same way or isn't even going to meet at all. So how can they change that around and be flexible with that? So helping them see problems in a different way, in a flexible way, is going to, again, build their resilience and build them into a stronger adult. So this one is just common sense, but helping them develop healthy habits. Are they getting good sleep? Are they eating healthy? Are they taking care of themselves? So this actually will help them all around as human beings, will help them be able to, I mean, we know that sleep in general, if you have poor sleep, that leads to poor life outcomes. It also can be a cause of a lot of psychological stress. But just in general, having healthy physical habits is going to make them do better and be able to cope with life stressors overall better. And along the same line, as I was talking about coping skills, we need to encourage them to have overall healthy self-care skills, and help build those things with them. And I know self-care is kind of like a buzzword. We hear it all the time. But what's the difference between coping skills and self-care is that coping skills is like those in the moment things that you do. It's, I'm really, frustrated. I'm really upset that my daughter's not listening to me. And so I'm just going to take a few deep breaths. Okay, now my body feels more relaxed. And I can bite my tongue and instead tell her more calmly, I don't like how you're speaking to me right now, da 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 da. But what self-care skills are those things that I do on a regular basis that keep my mind and body strong so that I can deal with life in a more healthy way. And just like we tell our kids they need to brush their teeth and they need to sleep and eat, which I'm sure all of you do those things, we need to teach our kids good self-care skills. Whether it's helping them learn meditation, yoga, deep breathing on a regular basis, not just taking 1 or 2 deep breaths. Helping them learn good boundaries, like how to pick friends that are healthy for us versus not healthy for us, journaling, having good hobbies. All these things are good self-care skills, and they will help make them an overall healthier human being. And just like I said, practicing, like with the coping skills, makes perfect, and they need to practice, practice, practice. It's the same thing with the self-care skills. Just doing them, maybe even doing it with them, helps them overall, and will actually make them do better in school as well, because they're taking care of themselves. If they take care of themselves, mentally, they'll also be taking care of themselves. They'll be able to be a better student. Safe connections. We all need to be connected with other people. So how can they, and kids, you know, like tweens and teens, definitely we know that they always want to, you know, be with their friends. It seems sometimes that's more important than family, especially when they get in the teenage years. That's not entirely true, but that is what it seems like. And it's been so hard for all of us to have safe connections. So this is something to try to help them do for sure. And so can they do it virtually? Is there a way to have them meet, you know, outside with masks? But not even just that, or the way to have them do activities that are safe. So using your own, whatever your own family values are, like how safe you feel to do things, because I know we all have a different vision of what that is. Making sure that they have those connections with their peers. Another thing COVID, I think, potentially can offer them, because some activities kids just can't do right now. But this is a time where maybe they can grow new skills. They can build things that maybe they didn't have an opportunity to do, because so many activities were, you know, they had so many activities in their schedule, but now there are a lot of activities that they can't do because of COVID. So what are those things that maybe they can focus on? And I know that school might make it a little difficult, but even schools has changed. They're potentially allowed some opportunities to open up in their schedule. So for instance, you know, my son, he loves music. He also loves computer programming. He's in high school. And so over the summer, he, you know, he learned from online computer languages. And that's something he's going to continue to do over the school year. And I encouraged that because I knew he was not seeing any of his friends. Also, he was writing his own music. But what are some things that your children are interested in that they can start doing? Can they virtually, and this kind of works with the next one too, and giving back, but giving back to others. So if they are, let's say, really good at math, can they, you know, virtually teach math to their, you know, younger peers? If they are, you know, good at music, can they give, you know, violin lessons to their peers? You know, so what are things they can do to give back? Because we also know that giving back is part of resilience and can make them be a more whole, you know, child, and more resilient child, and happy child as well. So I believe that actually was the end, but those are like a whole bunch of ideas that I have for you about how both the school year can be successful in terms of academically, you can decrease their anxiety, increase their coping skills, and overall make them a more resilient child or teenager. If you have any questions, I know I went pretty fast, but please let me know.
All right.
Yeah, very good lecture. I really enjoy your you know, seminar, and also I just found out your slides are so pretty.
Thank you. I love doing slides.
Very good, like you know, very beautiful slides. Yeah. I think, like, you know, I'm lucky. My kids, you know, I have the means, so they are in private school, so they're able to, like, you know, like my son can do all in-person learning. I know a lot of my friends' kids, they are going to like Anthony Wayne. They're all hybrid. It's very hard for little kids, you know, like um nine, you know, 9-year-old, 10-year-old to stay home. I mean, the mom, dad went crazy because little kids are. So I really like the build up a routine, like so they have also a very also the like have a place just for for study. I really like a lot of suggestions you have. Yeah, I some of them I see they are not in the in the meeting today, but we are going to post the whole meeting in the in the website. I hope other parents are able to be able to hear this lecture. It's really helpful.
Oh, good.
Yep. It is very helpful, and I know my kids have some issues lately. I don't know it's because she become a preteen or just because of all of these COVID things. So I noticed she will argue more and she would delay work more. So sometimes I even, get lost. I mean, I even lost too. Get frustrated. So, yeah, I'm going to apply some of your skills you talked about, having more fun activities and some coping skills. So, I'll definitely try it.
Yeah, we all need to have the what's that called
Self-care.
self-care. Yeah, I mean parents are going crazy too.
I know. We do need to, maybe we practice the self-care and we teach it at the same time to our kids, because it is really stressful. I didn't even really address that, but it's so, I mean, if you're home with young kids and they're remote learning, that's very stressful,
Yeah.
and maybe even have even younger kids too that you're trying to take care of as well. So taking care of yourself is so important while you're trying to do all of these things. And maybe you're working, there's so many things I didn't talk about, but yes, you've got to take care of yourself too, which is easier said than done. So.
Hey.
Thank you so much for the lecture. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. I really enjoy, the content and also the slides. They're so pretty.
Good. Well, I'm glad you liked them. So you're welcome. I hope you have a good evening. And if you need anything else, let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.